Greetings, I'm Keith Klein, the host of the VentureFizz podcast, where I interview the most fascinating people in the tech scene. This is episode 384, and today's guest is Thomas TK Kinsella, co-founder and chief customer officer of Tines. The success of Tines is not based on luck. The company's co-founders experienced a major problem that wasn't being solved by existing platforms, and after talking to peers who were also dealing with the same problem, they decided to do something about it. But it wasn't just an idea that got them to where they are today. This team was uniquely qualified to build the next generation solution based on TK and his co-founder and CEO, Eoin Hinchy's many years of experience in the cybersecurity industry, plus a history of working together for something like 15 plus years at Deloitte, eBay, and DocuSign. Tines empowers teams to build, run, and monitor their most mission-critical and sophisticated workflows. The company recently announced a $125 million round of funding at a $1.125 billion valuation and is also co-headquartered in Dublin and Boston. In this episode of our podcast, we cover lots of great topics, like a discussion about the cybersecurity industry and the platform shift to AI, TK's background story growing up in Dublin, and some mutual geeking out on rugby, starting his career in cybersecurity at Deloitte, where he met Eoin, plus lots of details about what they were working on at both eBay and DocuSign, getting Tines started from the early days and all the details about the platform and where it is today, why they hired a top designer as one of the first employees in the company, and the importance of making products that are easy to use, details on the latest round of funding and what's next, and so much more. Okay, now a brief word from our podcast sponsor, Silicon Valley Bank. I'm excited to share that this podcast is brought to you by one of the strongest longtime supporters of the local startup ecosystem, that being Silicon Valley Bank, a division of First Citizens Bank. SVB serves innovative tech, healthcare, and life sciences companies, including 60% of CNBC's Disruptor 50 list, 72% of Forbes Cloud 100 list, and 48% of Forbes AI 50 list companies. With more than 1,500 bankers and relationship advisors and $42 billion in loans through Q2 2024, SVB delivers the right people, service, and resources to support your entire financial journey. Learn more at svb.com. All right, without further ado, here's my interview with TK. TK, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you. Tines has made a big splash recently, raising a very large amount of venture capital funding. So it's super exciting times for the company in terms of what's ahead. And we're going to talk about the company and everything that you guys are working on. But to start things off, I can't have any conversation about talking about AI. But when I think about AI, there's a lot that goes with it. And I saw a video that your company published recently where somebody was walking around the RSA conference talking about security professionals and are they embracing AI? Can it be trusted? So I was like, yes, that is exactly what I want to talk about, kind of kicking this thing off. So what's the vibe out there with security professionals?
I think the good news is that security professionals have had challenges for a long time. They're burnt out, they're understaffed, they feel stressed, and AI can definitely help with that. So the vibe is cautious optimism, but there's so much hype out there. And if you were on that RSA floor, you couldn't pass a single booth without seeing AI, without seeing agents. And some of the features were impressive and some of them were extremely flashy. Some of them were just, I am cautious to knock anybody, but some of them were just bolt-ons to products where they look very good and they demo very well, but they don't
There's
actually
got to be a lot of
value.
smoke and mirrors out there too.
Tons of smoke and mirrors.
Right?
And cybersecurity has always been a little bit of a dark art where there's a black box, but we'll sell it to you as a silver bullet that's able to solve all your problems. That's been a problem for a long time. We've tried to differentiate ourselves a little bit there in Tines, but I think with agents and with AI, that problem's becoming a little bit worse. The good news is, again, there's a lot of excitement, and it means that a company like Tines or plenty of other companies out there that have products that we know there's specific use cases for, and there's actual value that can add, we can differentiate ourselves. The bad news is it's getting crowded, it's getting noisy, and for those people that are in the middle, it's getting clumped up and it's challenging.
Yeah,
But that's all part of the fun, all part of the game.
It's all part of the evolution. I mean, each platform shift, there's going to be new challenges and data protection and cybersecurity protection. So it's part of the deal.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, let's rewind the clock. So where did you grow up? What were you like as a child?
Yeah, I grew up in like born and bred and buttered in Dublin is what we say in Ireland. As a child, I have a twin sister, so a lot of it was around like spending time with her and spending time with like my mum's family and my dad's family were large, so spending a lot of time with them. Um, I wasn't like the smartest kid in the class or anything like that, but I was generally like pretty curious. I was probably pretty nerdy as well, and but I tried to play a bunch of sports and get excited about like all my extracurricular activities. I think yeah, like by the time I got to high school, I was yeah definitely on the little bit of a nerdier side. I was in like the chess club and debate club, but I was still playing tennis and rugby and a couple of other sports as well. So uh, I won't say a complete all rounder. Definitely towards the nerdier side of things. But yeah, I think I like to think that hasn't stood too badly to me so far. I suppose.
And I was curious about what sports you played, and when you said rugby, I just was had this thought in my head that I'm like, I bet you he played rugby. And I have a friend from Scotland, and he's gotten me into the Six Nations rugby tournament, so that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm a rugby fan, and yeah, I'm like tomorrow I'm heading off to this will date the podcast, but tomorrow I'm heading off to the the final of what's the Super Bowl of rugby, basically in Europe, or the Champions League final of rugby, the Heineken Cup final. But yeah, watching rugby as a spectacle, it's amazing, it's intense, and it's a yeah, it's a fun game to be a spectator at. There's also like there's a lot of goodwill and like people just enjoy it for it. There's very little aggro or anything like that. But it's a great sport to follow.
Football, all sports are great team sports, right? But
Yeah.
I think rugby is the ultimate team sport of how they work together and ultimately score a try. Like,
Yeah, and like it's also the case that like, for a lot of team sports, and I guess you could probably say this about like American football as well, but like for a lot of team sports, there's one type of build or one type of like, person that's very good at it. Like basketball would be a really good example of that. But like in rugby, you've got your props and your forwards who are like your large, bulkier guys. You've got the middle of the road, and then like your backs who are like really, amazing, like fast sprinters, agile, still like they're getting hit by 16 stone guys, so they have to be like strong. But then you've got your like small scrum half and stuff. So it's a real like yeah, diversity of talent. A real it's like everybody can fit in as long as you're prepared to get
whacked, hit
by,
hard
yeah, whack by
with no
some of the
pads,
larger guys. Yeah,
no
yeah,
pads.
no pads and no breaks. Like just keep on going. So
All right. How did you get your career started?
yeah, I didn't like. I was a relatively all round, again, like reasonably academic, but I was relatively all round. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I think if I was following my like hopes and dreams, I probably would have like gone into like some like liberal arts or something like that. But I was like very practical. My family were always very like very practical. So I kept my options open, and I did a course called Management Science and Information System Studies in Trinity, which is one of the universities in Ireland or in Dublin. Um that was like a pretty broad education. It's like maths, statistics, computer science, and yeah, a little bit of like business and accounting and stuff like that. So like it's not an MBA or anything like that, but it kind of gave you that like foundation in a whole lot of areas. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I kept like keeping my options open. Then I like for the last 2 years, I like delved a little bit more into computer science and like probability, and that got me a little bit more towards yeah the area that we ended up or that I ended up going into in my career. But it was yeah, it was a little bit of a practical decision on what was gonna come next. And yeah, keeping my options open, I suppose. So
All right. So you landed at Deloitte first?
yeah, I landed at Deloitte. My father passed away in between my like third year and my final year, so like I yeah possibly would have either like tried to get away to London or do something there, but I was like, nah, I need to stay around for my mum and my family, and it was also like the middle of the like this is like 2010, so it was like smack bang at the start of the or the early parts of that recession, and so there weren't a ton of opportunities. And Deloitte was yeah, again, it was like an area that there was a good career option you could learn. The salaries were brutal, and the job was like it was enjoyable. I learned a whole load. Um, Plenty of challenges there as well that I can talk about. But it was like it was certainly one of those things that I was like, yeah, I know if I start my career here, I'm not gonna go too far wrong. And sure enough, I met like some really incredible people uh and yeah, learned a lot about how to run a business, how to treat customers, and maybe a little bit of the opposite, how to what things you might avoid if you're building a team as well. So
Yeah, because you launched right into security, right? Like you're an IT security and forensic specialist.
yeah, so my this is kind of going back. My cousin worked in again, I didn't know what I was doing. He like studied like cybersecurity, and it's like this is a really interesting area. And like cybersecurity was an area that like it was very, very early at that point. But so I joined what was known as the Enterprise Risk Services Department in Deloitte. And that was like, some consulting, some cybersecurity, some data analysis. And I ended up spending a lot of time in like large scale like e-discovery investigations. So there were some cases of like, fraud where you were doing analysis of like companies' books to say like, hey, what's going on here? Or somebody had done some, like there was some, yeah, insider threats where you're performing forensics on people's laptops and trying to figure out what was going on. So I got a reasonable picture of like the security landscape as well. Um, and yeah, like, but also like dealing with clients, dealing with customers, and like, writing reports, all the sort of stuff that you do in your like large professional services, or accounting firms. So yeah, again, I really enjoyed it, but yeah, the definitely the area that was most interesting of that was the like cybersecurity area. I was like, oh, this is actually like this is exciting. There's a little bit of buzz, and it was just ticking off. Like nobody certainly like in the wider community, nobody had ever really heard of it. But there were organizations out there that were, experiencing large attacks, and like all of a sudden people were aware of, phishing, and these accounts being compromised and hacked, and like the language was starting to come into society a little bit, and people were becoming more aware. And that was when yeah, Owen, the Tynes CEO, my co-founder, um, he just got a call from one of his like colleagues, or one of his somebody he went to university with, who was like, hey, I'm working for eBay. And we're like, oh yeah, eBay are amazing. I was like, yeah, I think you should like come and join the cybersecurity team at eBay. And then he was there for like a month and gave me a call, and we both just spent a couple of like, I'd say, incredibly fun years at eBay. Like the company was growing fast. Like they were like together with PayPal at the time, and we were just working on like really interesting challenges and problems. And the eBay team were sharp. They were yeah, they invested in like good technology, uh like real good management culture. Again, plenty of challenges, but like we really loved like working there. And we got a lot of, because we were in Ireland and a lot of the teams in the US, we got a lot of like independence to, build our own processes, and yeah, and learn a lot. So I really liked it there. So
So this was something that I discovered when I was preparing for this interview was I was looking at Owen's background, your background. I'm like, wait, they worked at Deloitte together. Wait, they worked at eBay together. So
yeah,
like you
yeah.
guys have developed this relationship like 14, 15 years now? Like,
Yeah, at this point, yeah, it's long. And actually, like, yeah, we first met at the like when I was interviewing for Deloitte, so it's like almost even like back before that. But yeah, we just like we uh in Deloitte, we were both, working in the same lab at, this was classic, classic professional service, at the weekends when like you're just being, putting in your overtime. Like it'd be the two of us like working together, and we quickly learned to trust each other very closely, and also, um, yeah, like understood, hey, here's an area that he's incredibly good at, and here's an area that I'm incredibly good at. So like we balanced each other out a little bit. And it's, yeah, we worked in Deloitte, eBay, DocuSign, and now Tynes. But like, I could play Hinchy in pretty much any like meeting at this point, and he could play me in pretty much any meeting. So it's great. It's also Yeah, it's funny as well because in some situations you can like, obviously you can still surprise each other, but in some situations you're like, oh, I know exactly how this is gonna go, but we need to have this conversation and we need to play it out. But yeah, it's nice when yeah, just there's a whole load of trust, and it's nice when over the years you're able to build that relationship with somebody and uh yeah know them and like you build that really yeah just friendship relationship, but also that like a strong professional relationship as well.
Well, I'm sure we could have a separate podcast about the eBay 3.5 years of what you saw as far as,
Yeah.
malware and phishing and just a whole myriad of things at eBay. But so you went to DocuSign. What did you focus on there?
Yeah, so like I suppose when we were at eBay, like it was a lot of like large scale account takeovers, and like yeah, phishing of their customers. At DocuSign, um, it was way more like like building the security operations team. So that's the internal security team that are trying to keep the company safe and detect and respond to incidents. So building that team from the ground up. So we're like two first folks on that team, and we built that team up to like 20 something odd people. Like as like DocuSign was going public. So like from a Series C, Series D company all the way. And that was like basically just like building the security infrastructure. So choosing your logging tool, choosing your like, endpoint tool, choosing like a case management system to track, um, and also then like yeah, hiring people, understanding like oh, actually like there's a tiny bit of account abuse or fraud on the platform that we probably need to address, and there's areas that now all of a sudden DocuSign, they're a great company, but they encourage you to click on links in emails, and security as a
Uh-huh,
security challenge,
uh-huh.
that's probably not something that you want to be encouraging everybody to do. So
Right.
we started seeing a lot as the brand grew. We started seeing that a lot, but we yeah, it was working with the engineering teams and the product teams to yeah, like put in place various different measures to detect. But yeah, it was a fun time, but this is kind of a little bit of the genesis of Tynes. What we realized was that like we were forward thinking, but we got good, and we got good at detecting, and we got good at um understanding our environment, and we were like picking like best in breed tools, and that was like fantastic. Our like the leadership team were really supportive. But the ironic part was that like as we got better at detecting bad on the security team, like all of a sudden we had more work to do. And it's like you're like, oh, this is challenging. And the detection and engineering team that we were running, like we were building out really solid detections, and we were realizing, oh, there's more stuff that we have to do. There's our like IT hygiene wasn't necessarily like up to scratch, or people were doing stuff that they probably just shouldn't have been doing for company safety. So we realized like, okay, there's not a lot of there's no easy answer here. And we asked all of our peers, hey, what are you doing? And everyone's like, yeah, we're suffering with the exact same thing. Like, there's like too many tools. They don't talk to each other. We're like, yeah, we've got a good team, but they're all like burning out. And everybody was like talking about automation. But when we talked to them, nobody was doing it well. And then we tried. So we went out to the market and we tried like yeah, 5 or 6 different automation platforms and like tried to get them up and running. And they were all really hard. And even though there were one or two that were like, ah, I could see this kind of working, the problem was that like there would only be like one or two people on our team of like 25 that would be able to use it. We're like, this doesn't fit our needs. We want like I don't want to have to go to like Roberto and ask him, hey, can you like code me up something for this particular like small problem over here? I want to do it myself. Um, so yeah, we saw there was a bit of a gap in the market, and we said like, hey, there's an opportunity to go fix it if we want, and we just roll the dice, I suppose.
So I listened to another podcast. So if the story is right, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Owen went off for a bit, getting things going, and then you eventually joined. I'm sure you guys were working together,
Mhm.
but you were still, I guess paying the bills, and
Yeah,
then
literally,
going full
yeah.
time together.
So I'm not a software engineer. So I like to a certain extent like building that MVP was not going to be my forte. But as you said, like we'd worked together for such a long time. We were we were both like yeah, very closely partnered. But yeah, he built that like first MVP, put it out, got it in the hands of a couple of yeah, a couple of uh early like yeah, like our network. So our like our friends, our not quite family, but those colleagues that we'd worked with in various different roles and we'd seen at conferences and stuff like that that you could ask. And once we had enough feedback that like, hey, this is actually something that maybe we consider doing, that's when I was like, okay, yeah, I'll like yeah, I'm it's not that I was always hopping on board, but like that's when it's like, okay, now it makes sense. So yeah, I joined. Yeah, it was almost a year after Owen. He spent it a year like building and doing that early stage, and then it was us for another year basically, um, before we started hiring a few more folks. But yeah, that early stage, we kind of he was still like heads down building the product, and I'd be then like anytime we had a prospect that wanted to trial the product, or anytime we had a customer and they needed to be onboarded, or we needed to like build integrations or support, like all of that like stuff I was doing, and he was we were both in fairness we were both doing sales. If you could generously describe it as doing sales. We were hoping to God that people would purchase by just just showing them the product rather than building any proper go-to-market function. But we were yeah, we were both like both demoing, but he was he was like doing a lot of the product building. I was doing a lot of the support and making sure that our customers were successful. And again, like that from having worked together, we that definitely was going to work. And it really it worked. It worked very well, and we made a couple of customers wildly successful. We listened to just listen to all their feedback, and that was like it's just that's the motion that you got to do, like build, iterate, and still to this day it's build, listen to customers, get that early feedback, and like iterate upon it, and like ask them, hey, what's stopping you from using this? So it's yeah, in many ways there's that's how you have to go about building a company, but that's how we
Yeah,
started.
you need those early customers that are design partners to give you that feedback. It's
This
so
is it. Yeah.
critical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they were they're fantastic design partners, and they're like even to this day our customers are they're so vocal. Now we're I don't think we're pushy, but we ask them a lot for feedback, but they'll give us tons, and it's great. Like it's not quite like, hey, here's our roadmap, because you need to like develop your own roadmap as well. But in terms of like as we launch features, getting that feedback on what's important or what's broken, it's like it's as important like for our future growth, it's as important as the money they're paying us.
Now, did you always think you'd start a company? Like you told the story and it happened very organically, but did you kind of always think that that might be a possibility someday?
Yeah, like it definitely happened organically, but like we both talked about it a little bit, and like even when I was like interviewing for Deloitte, or like there was my dad had his own like it was only like a property management business, and a couple of my uncles had their own businesses as well. So like I'd always seen that as like, hey, there's a this is interesting, like I'd like to do that, but also there's an element of always an element of like excitement to it that I was like, this is like I wouldn't mind trying it. Uh, the other part about it was when we were in like both of us when we were in eBay, and in DocuSign, we worked with a couple of like I said earlier that we were we had like best in breed solutions. We worked with a couple of great startups, um, and learned a lot from them on like how to treat customers, on how to build your product, and how to build relationships. Uh, and it there was a certain yeah, it was like it was impressive, but there was a certain like element of like saying, actually, like I wouldn't mind trying that someday. And again, like the other part about it is we were both in a privileged position where we were able to like, quit our jobs and start something. Um, so uh, so yeah, that meant that like, at some point we wanted to try it. I think while we always like dreamed like, hey, maybe this could be, maybe this could be something big. I don't think we'd ever have said like this is the goal, but I don't like you don't when you're thinking about it, you're thinking about like starting and what those first like year or two are going to look like. You don't think about it like as it is right now. So I wouldn't have said yeah, I want to set out to start a unicorn or anything like that. That's not something you said, but like starting a company and like giving it a shot, that was definitely something that I wanted to do, and fortunately have been yeah, I've had the opportunity to do it. So it's been fun.
All right, so how did you know you finally had like validation for your platform? Like I'm sure there was competitors out there and you were working through your, colleagues in the industry as far as customers, but how did you know you finally had that moment?
Yeah, there was a couple of really early wins that we had. Again, like among our friends and family, uh, or our friends really, rather than family. Like where we landed McKesson when there were just like two of us, which was an amazing deal. They were like a
Wow.
Fortune 10, but that like we were up against, it was like the two of us, so like two, uh, young 30-something-year-olds in Ireland, and then it's like, the combined weight of Palo Alto versus and Splunk were the two people. They're POC three companies, and we like worked our ass off and absolutely knocked it out of the park, and we won the deal, and they purchased Heinz. But it was fun then, like that afternoon, just seeing like two or three reps from Palo Alto, like just check out your LinkedIn, and you're like, oh yeah, this is how we've made it. What just happened here? I think the time that we really knew about it was there's a couple of early deals, like Box was one of them, and OpenTable was another, where they came to us and they reached out to us proactively, and we're like, where did where did you hear about us? And they're like, oh yeah, just yeah, I like it. There was I'm part of this like CISO Slack community, and there's just some folks talking about you, and we were like, oh, wow, this is that thing that like it's like, product led growth and virality where like you're just like we're people are coming to us. I wish that would like that it obviously happens loads this to this day. I wish it was always that way. But yeah, when those first couple of customers came to us, and then you work and you make them successful, and they're like, yeah, this is actually brilliant and I really like it. That's when you're like, I think there's something here. I think there's a market for what we're selling that's beyond just those people that have a relationship with us and could be nice to us. So, yeah, those early deals were critical for like validating our belief, and also like they didn't have any, there was no relationship, there was nothing to for no reason for them to choose us, but they chose us, and we made them successful.
Well, that's great early stage go to market advice. It's golden. Deliver what you promise. People
Yeah.
talk, word of mouth, CISO, Slack channel, whatever it was. Hey, I'm working with Tines. It's amazing. Inbound, easy, easier pitch sale or to be at the table at least. So kudos to you guys.
Yeah, definitely. And like that is it. And like at every stage of your company, you should always be thinking about that. You always have to be thinking like long term, that this is, that this customer could be referring you to somebody else. But it's not just that. It's like the customer should, like for Tynes, should be referring you or could be referring us into their IT team. But it's like the thing that and the company is fortunately very, very good at this, and our post sales teams are excellent at this. But it's like it's everybody. It's, our support team, even if it's, the new intern that's in the company for like, 4 weeks over the summer, is wants to learn Tynes. Like that person, and it's happened, that person, I could talk about I won't name her, but she appeared on a billboard in San Fran with her name on it from Tynes. Like she started out as like an intern in Coinbase, and like we helped her, build like a couple of automations. She was fantastic. We really enjoyed working with her. But like then now she's twice been a customer in other companies, and it's like this is like it's treating everybody that way of like, hey, this person is a future well, it's worth treating them correctly in their own right, but like they're a future customer, and making sure that they see the value is super important.
I hope you are enjoying this interview. Just a brief word from our sponsor. As a longtime champion in the local startup ecosystem, Silicon Valley Bank supports innovative companies with the solutions and financing they need through every stage of growth. With more than 1,500 bankers and relationship advisors and 42 billion in loans through Q2 2024, SVB delivers the right people, service, and resources to support your entire financial journey. Learn more at svb.com. All right, so let's talk about the platform in itself, especially in today. I'm sure it originally like
Yeah,
had its use case that was like your moat, but it's expanded. So
yeah,
I guess if we could just talk about the platform.
yeah. So like Tynes itself, it's a super like powerful, easy to use like workflow automation platform. So at its core, there's a drag and drop canvas, where you're able to like drag and drop different tools, in order to like automate a process. At the start, we were like, it was always in security, but what we talked about like with our customers, we realized that actually in order to automate a security process, you didn't need like a connector to your SIM and a connector to your like antivirus platform and a connector to your case management system and a connector to your email platform. What I actually needed was like a couple of different like ways to do things. One was like modify data. One was to like connect to an API. One was to send an email. Another was to like trigger yes or no. And it's kind of like if you're building like building some furniture. Like you don't have like a piece of furniture to build a table and a piece of furniture to build a wardrobe. You've got a hammer, a chisel, a nail, a saw, a pen, and a piece of paper. And with those and some wood, you're going to be able to build anything. That's what we realized, and that was kind of like the core principle behind Tines. That actually you're going to be able to automate pretty much any process with what we call our actions. So there's just it's like 7 actions, and you're going to be able to automate anything. Um, we've now like so that's it, and we've got customers that are branch or that are using Tines now, just that like automation layer to automate tons of processes, a whole load in security, but also like IT teams onboarding and offboarding users, granting users access, patching assets, engineering teams who are like managing, like notifications, managing escalation paths, even like using Tines for the integration layer for their products themselves, which is really exciting, as well as like tons of other teams that are using Tines. What we've kind of branched out into now, though, it's like we've built yeah, I suppose built an automation suite and a workflow suite where like we've got a system of record, a case management system, a database which we call records, but also like the underlying controls that are so necessary for like enterprise automation. So things like change control and audit logs and version history and like all of the like auditability and traceability of like what's going right and what's going wrong and like errors when things are happening. Like the goal of Tines is to like power the world's most important workflows. So we're trying to like we have like lower the barrier to entry so that anybody can automate, but also make it so that the person that's automating can build something that's actually production worthy incredibly quickly. And it's all based on like just making it really easy to, if you master those like tools that I talked about at the start, you should be able to automate any process.
And kudos to your design team
Yeah.
because you have videos on your website and the user interface is very elegant and calming. Like,
Yeah.
because there's a lot going on that I bet you could make this user interface incredibly messy, but your team has done a fantastic job making it simple. And I just think of other pieces of software that I've evaluated where I was just like, I can't look at this because my hair's on fire.
Totally. The phrase, the phrase that was, it's not mine, but somebody said it to us. It's like it's simple, but it's not simplistic. But you have to be able to understand what's going on, and it has to be approachable, so that anybody can automate. But also, if you want to go that layer deeper, you have to be able to do it as well, because otherwise your engineers won't want to use it. But yeah, we realized it's not even very quickly, like from the very start, that in order to, if we wanted to be an automation platform, that I said it, when we tried out all these automation platforms when we were working in DocuSign, they were too hard. We realized it had to be super easy to use and intuitive. And the very first person we hired and the very first job offer we made was a designer. And
Wow.
that like so not like another engineer, not a salesperson, not a and the way we did it was we had a couple of VCs that had invested in us, and we asked them like, hey, who's the best designer in Ireland? And they said, well, there's this one guy, but he started his own company like 6 months ago, or maybe it's like a year ago. He's doing this design consultancy company, but he was in Vision. He's an unbelievable guy. He's definitely the person that's the best designer. And we're like, okay, well, let's like go out and try to convince him. And he was absolutely not interested. But we told him, hey, you should like, can we engage you for like consultancy project? And he's like, absolutely. I've got like 2 weeks in 6 months time or whatever. And we're like, okay. So we engaged him for 2 weeks, and we like for the previous 2 weeks he'd been working on an iPhone app or something like that. And we're like, all right, so we're a brand new company. We've just raised like $15 million. I want you to design our onboarding experience. And he's like, what are the constraints? And we're like, nope, design our onboarding experience. And he was like, okay, this is fun. And yeah, then we engaged him again, and he was like, man, I actually actually might be interested in joining. This is a much more interesting project. And he's and the design team, they're so focused on like making the product super usable and friendly. He's still with us, Johnny. He's like an incredibly thoughtful like designer. But it has to be like that's it's part of our it's still part of our like moat against a whole load of our competitors, but it's just part of our DNA that the product has to be simple, it has to be approachable, it has to be easy to use, and we like there's every single feature we design goes through tons of iterations in order to make it as simple and as understandable.
So, what advice would you have for entrepreneurs? Because I don't know if I've talked to, at least knowingly, that one of the very, very first hires in the company was design. Like that just speaks volumes. And my discovery of how elegant your product was designed was obvious. Like this wasn't like a preempted discussion of let's talk about the design of our product. It was like it was very obvious. So that obviously was core. Like you said, your DNA mattered of design. So how did you know to do that?
Like it was definitely born out of the problem that we were solving, where we realized that like the competitors that we were up against, it was so tough to it was so tough to use them. You basically just had to be an engineer to use them. And when we stepped back and we looked at the market, we realized it wasn't necessarily it was the only way that we'd be able to differentiate ourselves, but we realized it was the only way that we were going to get the like we were thinking very long term. It was the only way we were going to get the traction that we like ultimately ended up getting was by like completely lowering the barrier to entry. A lot of our and they've done very well. A lot of our competitors, like some of them got acquired, but like a lot of them were being used by your, like Fortune 500 companies, and that's where Tynes plays now. But at the start, we didn't play there, um, and yeah, we realized that in order to like to democratize automation, we had to make it easy. I think my advice is just it's not like it's very very simple, but it's like first of all, you have to be embarrassed by the first product that you launch. If you've not embarrassed by the first product that you launch, you've, launched too late. But it is just the decisions you make early on. Some of those are going to like you're never going to get your architecture completely right, but some of those are going to be really, really, really important. And if you're trying to think about your like moat, like ironically, if we'd made the product like, a little bit harder to use like 6, 7 years ago, like we would never be in the position that we are. The tech debt will be way too hard to solve later on. So thinking about, hey, this is a critical area to focus on. For us, design was that critical area. For other companies, it could be actually, we want to scale and our architecture has to be this important and our, the back end has to be this. It's like what's going to stop you in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, 5 years' time? And we realized that was just such an important area for us.
Now we talked, or at the beginning, I mentioned you recently announced a Series C, $125 million Series C at a $1.1 billion valuation. When you were in the early days of the company, raising that first initial round of capital, what was the process like? Because in my head, I'm envisioning two uniquely qualified people to solve this problem type of
Yeah.
meetings that if they are specialized in your space, they probably got it. And raising money is hard, but I would think VC firms would look at the two of you and say, yes, this is a problem that's a big market opportunity with these two individuals that are uniquely qualified to solve it.
Yeah, definitely. We say we never had a pitch deck for our first couple of rounds. That's not actually a good thing. At the time we were quite proud of it, and it's like now it's like actually maybe we should have put together a pitch deck, and we possibly could have got more money at a higher valuation or whatever. But I'm not saying we go back and change anything there at all. But just like I don't think going in there and hoping that somebody will come and pitch you and tell you like, hey, this is this is a really interesting area. We want to give you money is the correct approach. But yeah, we there was a lot of like VC interest, and there was like people reaching out to us. We we were bootstrapped, and we didn't really massively want to like raise money. The investors that the first crew that like impressed us, this company called Blossom, they're a UK company. They just like they added value and were kind of they'd done their research, so more so than saying like, "Hey, TK own, we want to have a chat." They the pitch was pretty. It wasn't even that it was pretty compelling. It was they're like, hey, like we saw the product, like looks really good. Your customers look really interesting. We're like curious how you differentiate from like these companies over here. Um, we see you're sponsoring this conference. I'm at this conference on this particular day. I'd love to meet you for a coffee. Like, does this work? And they just made it like a real easy conversation. And then the next, at that meeting, they're like, this, would you be interested in a couple of $1 million? And we're like, no. But like, yeah, of course, everybody's like slightly interested in hearing them out. And then, yeah, like once they were interested, there's a bunch of other folks that were interested as well. But, yeah, like as two people that had lived the problem, that had experienced it, that knew like firsthand, like the partly the way to solve it, but also the pain that we're experienced. It's like those founders, like if you're looking at them, they're always, they're good salespeople when they're talking to the people that that they empathize with, and because they understand the industry so well, it's really, really like it's really, really easy to invest. But you do have to be flexible. You do have to be adaptable. You do have to understand the VC landscape and have a little bit of nuance and experience at that stage. And that's like I said, we joined DocuSign as early on. Like Eoin was the first employee in DocuSign in Ireland. I was the 10th. And like we saw that office grow really fast. So we'd seen, what it looks like to hire your first couple of salespeople, your first couple of SDRs, when do you hire the recruitment team? When do you hire the people team? All that sort of stuff. When does marketing get involved? So in that sense, we had a little bit of that experience as well to know what it looked like to start a business. So yeah, we were compelling enough investment.
All right. So with the Series C behind you, and that was raised less than a year from your last fundraise.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously the investors are like, let's go. Like this is go time, right? So what's next? What are you looking ahead at?
Yeah, there's lots of different areas. I think like the reason we didn't set out to raise a whole lot of money, like 8 or 9 months after we'd raised, but yeah, when an organization like Goldman Sachs comes saying, hey, we'll give you a large chunk of change, and yeah, SoftBank and a few others are jumping in as well. Like you definitely have to consider it and hear them out. The traction that we'd had since our previous raise, and it wasn't very long, but like some of the logos that we had, the product that we launched, as well as some of the early traction for some of our AI features was amazing. So we have right now like 70 something percent of our cloud customers using our AI features. And that's like among our customer base and like some of the logos, it's really incredible to see. On top of that, like as we were getting up to that again, like past your like Fortune 500 into your like Fortune 100 into like your federal agencies, and just like completely non like core, like our ICP is now companies that rust. It's totally different landscape. As they saw that, it's like this is incredibly exciting, and we want to invest a little bit more. But right now, it's we've got a couple of different focus areas this year. The first, you cannot take your eye off the ball. You absolutely have to win our like security market. That's where we've grown, and that's where we're gonna like earn win the most business over the next year or two. We still absolutely have to stay in that market and win it. But as we're expanding out, it's going to be focusing on our expansion into other areas. So we've got like a bunch of customers, tons that are using us in the IT space, but we're now like landing a whole lot of customers in that IT automation space as well. So not just like landing in security and expanding, but actually going after some like prospects in that space and like winning new business in the IT teams. And then it's like building on our AI features. So we've launched a easier way of building, a easier way of interacting with AI on our like workflow canvas, but also like a chat client workbench that is like a universal co-pilot. So we're spending a lot of time thinking about that, but it is it's not necessarily like like absolutely like just go hog wild, go gangbusters, but it's very exciting for like the way our customers are pushing us and the way we're like growing in those like larger customers, and the way the market is going with AI, we're at a really exciting just a both inflection point for Tynes, inflection point for automation companies, inflection point for like industry in general, and we're in a unique area to take a huge advantage of that. So yeah, it's exciting, it's scary, it's exciting.
So, okay, so with this, you know, future of what you just talked about, there's a lot
Yeah.
going on. So that means you're probably growing the team a lot, and you have a pretty sizable presence in office in Boston too. So what is in Boston?
Yeah, so our US HQ is in Boston. We hired like a lot of the team, early team is in Dublin, in Ireland. So I think our investors would probably have loved us to, be on the West Coast, and that's where, to be honest, probably more of our customers are than the East Coast. But like the time difference makes a big difference, and also like we hired our like first engineer and a couple of like really solid sales team folks in Boston. So that's our US HQ. I think we got 60 or so people there, maybe a little bit more. We've got an office, but we're going to be opening up an office with our own nameplate, which is really exciting. And yeah, we've got like a pretty like a couple of engineers, a whole load of sales folks, a bunch of support teams, a bunch of like customer success folks. Yeah, like security, IT. There's a really good presence. And for us, it's like uh not just that, like, yeah, we hired some early folks there. There's a lot of companies that came out of Boston. Like there's a bunch of like really good security companies that were there, your Rapid Sevens and a whole lot of others that like had a good security base. And yeah, like hiring some of that like early talent where they grew those teams from, like whatever, 10 people to 100 people or 100 people to 1,000 people. We're able to like tap into that talent and yeah, really take advantage of it, which is fantastic. So yeah, it's been fun like spending a lot of time over there and getting to know the city as well. So
It's a strong hub. Cybersecurity is just like a
yeah,
very anchor part of the Boston tech scene. So smart
exactly.
move. So building a company, culture matters. So what's it like working at Tynes?
Yeah, I get this question a lot in interviews actually, where people are like, "Hey, what's your culture like?" There's certain things that we will say, like we've got our core values. Speed is one of them. Simplicity is another, and then the concept of soundness, which is an Irish phrase for. It's soundness is like reliable, obviously, but in Ireland, sound is actually like, if you call somebody sound, it's somebody that you'd like to be friends with or like to go for a pint with or something like that. It's a little bit of a nuanced phrase, and using that as our value kind of taps into a little bit of our Irishness as well. Um, we're like low ego, high impact, and we've we've we try to be like super. Yeah, it's like not over humble, but try to be humble as a company. And that's like we'll tell you honestly, hey, here's what we're good at, here's what we're not good at, and a lot of our brand speaks to that as well. What I will say though is that um it'd be very arrogant for me to say that the culture should stay the same when there's 2 people or 10 people as to when there's like a couple of hundred people. And one of the bits that I've loved the most is, as new people come and join Tynes, as people are, coming from like, yeah, other companies, they're bringing in new parts of the culture and they're sharing ways. Hey, actually, when I was working at uh, HubSpot, or when I was working at Okta, or when I was working at like whatever organization, this is an area of the culture that I really liked there. And I think we can incorporate that. And like watching the company grow and watching like new folks come in and like shape it and set up new Slack channels or set up, like after work events or like just like, you know, b- even just challenge some of our existing assumptions is brilliant. And that's, yeah, like it should be like culture. There's certain things that we absolutely expect and certain things that we will absolutely not tolerate, but it's also okay and it's great that the company evolves and the culture evolves, and that people can bring themselves and their ideas to work. It's great.
And I'm always a fan of learning something new. So I learned a tine is a prong of a fork, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. So Tynes is uh yeah, like it's a workflow automation platform. So if you imagine the prongs, if you imagine the prongs on a fork, but if you imagine a workflow, a lot of the time somebody's starting let's say it's, onboarding a new user, they're starting a new job, and depending on the department that they're in, you might give them access to certain tools, and then depending on the level they're at, you might give them access to other tools. Like that workflow looks like prongs. So the workflow part is like the tines. We don't really use that as a verb in the or as a noun in the platform, but yeah, it is. And then coincidentally, obviously, it's a 5-letter word that we can own on Google, and like used to actually brand ourselves, which is good. But we've got yeah, small aside, uh we owned Tines.io at the start, and we wanted to buy Tines.com, but it was owned by a French gentleman who we gently pitched on like selling Tines.com to us, and absolutely was not interested. And when he asked him like why, will you sell this to us? He said no, I could never sell. It's too important to me. I've named my company Tines after my son, who's Tan or Tantan, and my daughter Inez. So my company name is called like
Oh man,
Teenez, and like
yes.
you just can't put a price on family. So he
The kids were
eventually
like, "Dad, sell. They're
exactly,
offering
yeah,
you way too much to refuse."
exactly. But it was yeah, we had to. That was before our Series B. We were like, oh man, like it's either now or never. We have to purchase this, or if we announce that we've just raised 50 million bucks or whatever, like we're never going to get this domain. So we talked him into it, and he did sell eventually.
I thought you were gonna say he was like a silverware manufacturer, and he's like,
No,
"Absolutely not."
no,
I own
way more
fork.com
personal.
too. Uh, so all right,
So
what's been the biggest challenge building, scaling a company for you?
like there's loads of challenges. I think that the biggest learning is probably that like it's never ever build it great and they will come. Like it's never hire one person and they're going to solve it. It's never like ship this feature and they're going to then like the customers are going to roll in, sponsor this conference, and the leads are going to be better. It's always like get 1% better every single day, and that's what you have to be disciplined about. That it's not a sprint, it's an absolute marathon, and it's you just gotta hire really good people and like make yourself 1% better every day. But the challenges that are the biggest ones, they're always like people related and culture related, where you're like, actually we need to make a change here, or this isn't working, or we need to have an honest conversation around like what's working and what's not. And I think we're, as an organization, we're getting a lot better at that, but we're probably a little bit, nice isn't necessarily the right word, but I think we can be like we're not very good at difficult conversations, and that just like punts problems down the road. And like in the end, having an honest conversation is actually much nicer for everybody involved. Everybody knows where they stand, and everybody actually wants to get better and do a good job. So I think like the challenge of recognizing, actually, like, even personally, like, hey, like I was for several years like running all of our post sales team and like doing a good job. We had like very good expansion and retention numbers, but ultimately when you hit a certain amount in ARR, somebody who's got a cybersecurity background isn't somebody who should be managing like millions of dollars in renewals and upsells every single quarter. That's not my core strength. And like that's like there wasn't any difficult conversations there, but like recognizing that, and recognizing that for other people, that in some situations, hey, this is, it's okay. It's like, this hasn't worked out, or this has worked out brilliantly, but we need to move on, or this is this is an area we need to focus on a little bit differently, and we're gonna make a change, or actually this area of the product, it's not working, and like we need to switch it up. Having those difficult conversations early and recognize them, I think that's been the challenge, and that's the area that like I'm uncomfortable with still, but you got to get better at.
Yeah, that's good. Three apps you can't live without. Can't be Slack, email, or calendar.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. So the first is definitely my like podcast app. I'm a pretty avid listener of podcasts, both in the like tech space, but also just like completely breaking away from the tech space and listening to like history podcasts or whatever, and or keeping up with current affairs. The second, uh, probably the most expensive app, but the one that I spend a load of time on, is like Financial Times, for like actual analysis of like world events, or of like yeah, breaking news or tech news or like finance. Um keeping on top of what's going on is that's definitely the best investment and subscription that I have. And the third is right now I've got a 3.5 month child at home, and she's wonderful, and we love her to bits. But the Huckletree app is an app that it basically like you put it in when she's feeding, you put in when she's sleeping, and it tells you like up. It's honestly scary how accurate it is, being saying like her sleep is expected in like 20 minutes or whatever, and you can plan around like, or at least for us, it's working out very well right now, where it's like saying, hey, it looks like she's going to go to sleep in 20 minutes, and I'm like, okay, that's brilliant. And then like 10 minutes later, you'll see her start like like getting a little bit tired. I'm like, unbelievable. And so I don't know how they're doing it or what like technology
Right? How
is
do they do
behind it,
that?
but it's for us it's worked out very accurately. And
Wow.
um it's one of those that I've just been like recommending to a couple of other people. And I don't know if it's going to work beyond like this, but right now
Mhm.
absolutely an app I could not live with. I'm sure actually I could live without it, but like it's been worth every cent, and it's been fantastic.
What do you use for your podcast app?
I use Pocket Casts.
Okay.
There's for whatever reason, that's just what I've landed on, and it just allows me to reasonably quickly like filter on like new podcasts and add them to to my like what's up or what's next playlist, and then I've got a couple of filters for like tech or like history or work or whatever. So that's your cybersecurity one as well. So that's helpful. But yeah, it's good.
So,
Any
per
that you would recommend?
as far as a podcast app,
Yeah, yeah,
like I'm all native to Spotify now. They own my
yeah.
world of books, like audiobooks, podcasts, music, obviously. They've done a good job where I used to have, different apps for different use cases, and now it's all in one spot, which I love.
I totally hear you. Yeah, I haven't got into I use Spotify, but I haven't got into them for podcasts. But I think it's probably just the setup. Like I've got a reasonably good setup at the moment, so I'm happy with it.
Yeah, like if you're used to and you've got your history and
Yeah.
everything like filtered, like it works better for you.
Mhm.
Perfect segue. So, what podcast would you recommend for entrepreneurs?
There's a couple. th I'd say three different things. One, like, don't just listen to entrepreneurial podcasts. Like, life is really hard. Like, genuinely, like, take a break and break out of it and listen to something that you're actually like. And that, I've got a bunch of sports podcasts I listen to. It's really helpful to like get your head out of the game sometimes. Um, when I was like, when we were starting, I was listening to a whole load of like, like venture podcasts that helped. But right now, 20 VC is interesting. Also, like Masters of Scale with Reid Hoffman, I actually really like. I think that some of those interviews are like thoughtful, in depth, and they give some give some specific recommendations. Um, and then I think they're probably the sets of ones that I'd recommend.
Cool. Well, TK, thanks so much for taking the time to walk us through your background story, obviously all the great work that you and the team are up to at Tines, and obviously all the great advice.
Thank you, and look, it's a pleasure to be here. And thank you so much for having me on.